Good afternoon. And today we have a pleasure of interviewing Dr. Richard Brown. Good afternoon, doctor.
Great to be with you.
We prepare for this interview, I would say, for the last 6 months. Let me introduce Dr. Brown to you. Dr. Brown, he's a world-known expert. He's a psychologist by training, but he's a world-known expert in the breathing technique. And as you know, on this channel, we try to help people sleep and breathe in the same time. And I think today we're going to learn a lot of practical tips and secrets that help people to live a healthier life and breathe better and in the same time to have a clear mind, healthy body, and our overall well-being. So again, we thank you, our audience, for watching us. And if you have somebody who have a difficulty sleeping, or if you have a difficulty sleeping or sleep next to the snoring partner, please click the like and share button and spread the information about our channel. And now the little story behind the channel. Over the years of working with the dental patients who are suffering from damage caused by sleep and breathing disorders such as the pain, bruxism, underdeveloped jaw, and other pathology, I start offering therapy for obstructive sleep apnea. But by working with those patients, what I learned, how difficult it is to find the therapy for that disease. And CPAP machine, that's the, I would say, golden standard, how they call it in our country. It's one size fits all, but I never met the patients in my life who would consider themselves what one size fit to them specifically. That's why on this channel, we're trying to find the root cause of the disease and find the specific custom design technique that can help specific people with personality and with the desire. I've been offering oral appliance therapy, and that has a lot of imperfections as well. And on my channel, I try to explore different aspects of that disease, offer support for those who are going through the different therapy for obstructive sleep apnea, and present adjunct remedies to help with the treatment and create network of professionals such knowledgeable as Dr. Brown, who are passionate about helping people to sleep and breathe in the same time, just like us. And I would like medical and dental professionals to use my channel as a networking ground, and only in collaboration we can put the puzzle of sleep and breathing disorders together and find the best solution for treatment for people who suffer from that silent killer. And as I mentioned before, I'm really passionate about helping people to get refreshing silent sleep they deserve if they have trouble sleeping or sleep next to snoring partner. And now I'm going to tell a little story how I come across Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown helped my close friend, who actually mouth breather for the last, I would say, 70 years of his life, to change the pattern of breathing for him and make him healthier. And then, knowing about that, I also learned about other wonderful work that Dr. Brown does for people around the world. If something terrible happened, like an earthquake in Turkey and Syria, Dr. Brown offered his vast knowledge to help people deal with the panic and stress and anxiety. And, war in Ukraine, which I'm specifically passionate about. He helped people in Russia and Ukraine to feel better. A lot of other situations in Africa, Rwanda, for example. So Dr. Brown, trying to help people in need, and we appreciate your great work for sure. Again, Dr. Brown, I would like to know how you become interested in a breathing technique, taking into consideration what you had a traditional medical training, medical school, and you become psychologist. How breathing become point of your interest?
When I was 10 years old, where I was living, because we moved around a lot, my father was in the Army, where I was living, there were a lot of white supremacists, let's call them Christian nationalists, neo-Nazi skinheads. And I was not part of their group. And so they tried to beat me up repeatedly because back in those days, it's a long time ago, you walk to and from schools. I had 3 miles to walk each time. And they knew who I was by my clothes. And after 2 times, I was saved by an older guy who was a friend who had done martial arts. And I realized he wasn't always going to be around to save me within 5 or 10 minutes. And it was really quite dangerous. And I then began to study martial arts. And my teacher was an amazing Cuban man who had been trained in several different Japanese martial arts by very high level people. And I was required to do breathing and meditation and yoga, as well as martial arts, jujitsu, judo. And it was in a military club with a lot of special forces. And they wanted to know things because they were back and forth to Vietnam. Then I continued my study when I came to New York for medical school with Japanese karate. Breathing and meditation were required, and special kinds of meditation too. And then by 1986, I decided to study with Aikido because my first teacher said, if you ever find an Aikido master, study with him. Because that first teacher was very spiritual, and Aikido is one of the most spiritual martial arts in Japan. And I, by chance, found a master teacher and have been studying with him since. And again, breathing was required. He's famous for his meditation, but he didn't require it. But obviously, I knew it was important. And that led to writing about this and how to help the worldwide epidemic of stress and depression, presenting at the United Nations. And then the next thing I knew, a famous teacher of breathing, a breathing master in India, contacted me. And eventually I ended up studying with him, traveling with him around the world, being in India and other countries, and seeing, I'd seen with my Japanese teacher amazing things happen to heal people from breathing. But then with the teacher in India, I just learned so many kinds of breathing and complex breathing.
We would like to learn about them now.
Yeah. So basically, we began to realize that the whole world is disturbed and our minds are disturbed. Our attention is very poor. And this was before COVID happened. And we wanted to provide programs for people because nobody intends to make a mistake. You make a mistake because your attention is in the wrong place.
Yes. I would like to ask you, as a dentist who constantly kind of experience or facing or witness panic attack, that's, I would say, very
Right.
common story in a dental practice.
Definitely. Yeah.
I would like to ask you what, myself as a doctor, I should do to help person who experienced the panic attack or person himself have to do. I would like you, and by the way, Dr. Brown has a wonderful book called Healing Power of Breathing, and if you can show it to us, you can get the book or find out about wonderful courses Dr. Brown and his wife Patricia Gerber offering on a breathing technique to learn how to breathe right. So getting back to panic attack, tell us what practical things person should do, because they can happen anywhere, in the office, at home, trigger.
Anywhere.
Yes, anywhere. What they should do if in case if it happened, as well as the person who witnessed how they can help. And
Right. So whether they're feeling panicky or terrified or angry, the autonomic nervous system is out of balance. And usually people are breathing too fast and shallow. By shallow, I mean up here in the chest primarily, instead of primarily down in the belly. And so what happens is, as they get more and more out of balance, they, what we call, blow off too much carbon dioxide. And your system becomes imbalanced chemically and physiologically, neurologically. And so what I like people to do at that point is know to do a breathing we call 4, 4, 6, and 2. It's an
we can do it
ancient rhythm
together.
throughout Asia for breathing. So we like things that appear many times over thousands of years in different places and have been kept for thousands of years to help people. So we breathe in for 4, we pause our breath, holding the breath without effort. That's why I say pause. Because when I say hold, sometimes people are like, I'm going to hold the breath. Yeah, it's like, just pause your breath. And then we breathe out for 6 and pause that out breath 2. So then your carbon dioxide level corrects itself quickly. Now, if you do the core breathing we teach, coherent breathing, regularly, you usually don't get out of balance and go into a panic attack. Okay. But the 4, 4, 6, and 2 is really good when you're very disturbed. The coherent breathing is good anytime, anywhere. It tunes up every system in your body.
That's very important. That's so important.
And it's amazing how quickly it happens, how easy it is to do. But it's so different than how we normally breathe. The first
True.
time people do it, they feel, oh my God, this is weird. I don't feel right. Well, we're just so addicted to stress and desire. What's the next thing I can get? What's the next thing that'll make me feel good or feel bad?
True story.
It just messes up our minds.
I have a
So,
question. Oh, I'm so sorry to
go
interrupt
ahead.
you. I have a question. Sometimes we get panic attack, we're just scared and we breathe fast, and sometimes we can be really angry and we get a panic attack. In that case, or maybe what would be your suggestion in that case? Like
Right.
with a lot of like rage inside. What person?
Yeah. And we've done this a lot with kids who are emotionally dysregulated. It's not their fault. It's the conditions they're living in are so disturbing. And we do what we call ha breath. So the 3 main kinds of breath we teach, there are others we teach, but for most everybody, you need ha breath, you need the 4, 4, 6, 2 breathing, and you need coherent breathing. So in ha breath, the child breathes in and goes, ha, ha. So this is both a defensive and aggressive motion. So whether you're afraid and you want to keep somebody from getting close to you, or whether you're thinking of hitting them, you're exercising your natural movement that goes with that. But it slows your breath down, but it also helps you feel more empowered to have a voice.
Yes,
And when you breathe,
yes.
and also you have to breathe from your belly to do huh. You have to tighten the muscles in your belly, and then you breathe in more naturally.
That's
Instead of
wonderful.
just getting tense all over.
What can you tell our listeners what is coherent breathing you referring to?
Right. So coherent breathing for the person of average height, and typically from kids like 9 on, assuming you're not over 6 feet in height. Coherent breathing, we teach it at about 5 breaths per minute with a method developed by Stephen Elliott. His website is coherence.com.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, 6 breaths per minute is best. Some researchers use 5 breaths, some use 5.5 breaths, some use 6 breaths. They feel different to me, like different kinds of wine feel different to a wine connoisseur. Okay. But to the average person, they all make you work optimally.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 different laboratories, one in Italy, one in the United States, everything you can measure gets optimal very quickly, and it lasts for hours after you do some of the breathing. And it means what I say is, okay, first close your eyes. I want to take your attention inside. You're going to breathe in and out through your nose without effort. When you breathe in, you don't have to fill your lungs. When you breathe out, you don't have to squeeze all the air out. It's the pace of the breathing and you're being relaxed. That means the 2 complementary parts of your autonomic system work together optimally. And normally, when we're in stress mode, once the threat-seeking side of our brain is the one that's switched on, and the happy-seeking part of our brain that helps you feel loving and feel what other people are feeling, that's shut down. And you can only do simple, you can't think creatively, you don't have a good sense of humor, you're very self-absorbed. So we want to kind of bring down the threat-seeking part of the brain and bring up the loving part of the brain, and then they balance together and everything works so much better.
This is wonderful. This is such a deep philosophical thing what breathing is. So it's actually our interaction with the world. If you put it this way, that's how we
Exactly.
interact every 5 breaths per minute,
Right.
desirably
So,
also.
for example, Friday, teaching Ukrainian psychologists who want to use this to help, like we do, large groups of people. So there were almost everybody was doing it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the women said, I just realized this made me come back to my genuine self that I haven't felt for months. And I
Wow,
said,
that's a
yes,
strong, powerful statement.
the breath is a link between the outer world and your genuine self. And how
Wow.
many times do people go through their day not in their genuine self?
Totally true. That's lead to my next question. First, I want to have a short answer for our audience, because that's kind of, I have a several mission. One of my mission is to make people eat through the mouth, but breathe through the nose, not vice versa. Not eat through the nose and breathe with the mouth.
Right.
No, breathe through the nose and eat through the mouth. And what I realize, and I really want to spread the word about that, what a lot of people, they don't pay attention how they breathe, and they actually breathe through the mouth. They call it both, but I know that both it's mouth, because it's much less resistance and easy. Even through the surgery, they open up the nose. If we don't put psychological effort to do that, it's not gonna happen. Again, I want to say thank you to our audience. If you can put your questions in the chat box, we're gonna ask Dr. Brown, of course. And that's my question to you. What's the right way to breathe? It's a short question.
Right. So we emphasize to people that they need to learn how to breathe in and out through the nose. In martial arts, which I've also done and teach, I've been taught to teach people how to use mouth breathing so you're ready to attack or be attacked.
I love it.
But most people want to feel happier and healthier.
Yes. Now, I want to ask you that question. It's been puzzling me for the last 15 years, through my work with obstructive sleep apnea patients. Why so many people breathe wrong?
I don't think we really know for sure, but in my thinking about this for years, I realized we're not living now, the last 100, 150 years, we're not living the way we've lived for most of our evolution the last 300 years, 300,000 years, okay? We're really apes that came out of the forest maybe 60,000 years ago. And we now are in such an unnatural kind of environment. So for example, in Japan, they have something called taking in the woods. And you go out in the forest and you feel better and you take in the energy from the trees. We know if you take a child with ADHD and take him in the woods, his brain starts working better. If you put him in the city, his brain starts working worse. And how these things happen, we're wired to have certain things that most of us no longer have. So as a boy, I grew up in the city some of the time, and I was in the country, real country, in the mountains a lot of the time. I love being alone in the woods, in the mountains by myself for weeks at a time. It's been years since I was able to do that. But getting that experience of who you are without needing so many things and relying upon yourself and developing inner abilities you have, which are beyond just your intellect.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. So basically, amount of allergy we experience due to the air being changed,
Right.
and I would say, air quality. That's another thing, not related to allergy as well, because and
Absolutely.
a lot of flower blooming. To make it beautiful. That's, yes, allergy. I find what a lot of people, if they experience allergy as a kids or asthma, then if they did not conscientiously change the way they breathe, they usually develop sleep apnea as a next step.
And that was, I had allergies and I had to have desensitization shots, but I found when I went to see family of mine that lived in Wyoming, in Colorado, which is high altitude, that my breathing was so much better. And when I came back to the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, I felt like I was
Yes.
having a really hard time.
I have a question. A lot of people are concerned what oxygen level decrease at night. And some people say to me they wake up blue. Yeah, I even saw in a sleep study 2 days ago, 53% at night. Tell me why that happened, and can person die from it?
Right. Well, when you're breathing through your mouth at night, and also often there's a slight closure of the airway, the muscles that kind of are around the palate and the pharynx kind of are too relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
and the tissue closes off the airway. Even a little bit of closing off the airway reduces the amount of oxygen you get. And what that means is your oxygen level goes way down at night and you don't really sleep properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the day, your brain is like, I got to make up the sleep. Sleep does many things in your brain and your
Mm-hmm.
body.
Mm-hmm.
And people go to sleep and it won't kill you, but over time, it creates a lot of problems in your body. High blood pressure is one. There are other
Mm-hmm.
problems. And also, your brain works like worse than someone who's legally drunk. You need that oxygen. So getting that fixed is very important. And often when I was leading breathing courses in person, which we've been doing now online since COVID,
Mm-hmm.
we'll eventually get back to in person, but online too, we hope. But what we would see is in a course, say of 50 people or 100 people, we'd have one or two people who, as soon as they'd start doing the breathing, they'd go deeply asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. I mean, breathing when you calm down, often you get sleepy, but it's not like within seconds the person is totally out
Mm-hmm.
and gasping for air or snoring
Oh,
loudly. Yeah. Either those are both different ways sleep apnea shows itself.
yes.
And so I would help people go to the right person to get their sleep apnea treated, but they would keep learning the breathing and
Yes.
benefiting from it.
I think that's very important point. Now I want to ask you a question, and it's related to your other book, and I see a lot of kids in my practice, and the parents are very concerned about, like
Right,
everybody different, right? We shouldn't fit to
right.
one size, but a
Yeah,
lot of kids get diagnosed with ADHD, and then parents would be advised from the teachers to keep child in line, to put them on a medication, and a lot of parents don't want that, and they're suffering from that dilemma what to do. Please talk to us how, what else can be done in non-medicated way. And
right,
I know it's all in a book, and thank you very much for showing that, and I recommend to our listeners who have a child like that, or
right.
to
Yeah, no,
get the
there's
information.
really helpful, important things to know. There have been two good studies of yoga breathing for boys with ADHD, mainly boys with ADHD. It's easier to diagnose ADHD in boys than girls. Girls have ADD. It's a slightly different
Mhm.
kind. And so what they showed in those two studies in Germany and Australia, that if they did the breathing, their brains worked close to as well as they would on Ritalin. Okay.
That's wonderful. And is any herbal,
Yeah.
medication you can mention?
Right. So very important to know. Perhaps the best researched plant extract or herb in the world is called pycnogenol, Pycnogenol. It's extracted from the French maritime pine tree. So many well done, randomized, controlled, double blind studies. It helps everything in our body. And we know the kind of chemical that it has in it correlates with better health and longevity in older people too. But in children, a group at the University of British Columbia in child psychiatry and a group in Czechoslovakia showed that pycnogenol works really well for kids. I find in adults with ADHD it doesn't help, but in kids it can help a lot. And there are multiple mechanisms. The chemical in it helps activate your brain cells. So the ADD brain is kind of half asleep. But this activates your brain. More than that, we know in ADHD kids, there's an imbalance of zinc and copper. We don't know
Mhm.
why. They are related to each other. They're complementary. They're both good. And you have to have the right balance. But ADHD kids don't have the right balance. And the pycnogenol corrects that too.
Amazing, amazing. And I want to ask you about your other book, if you can show it to us. Um,
Right. Yeah. So How to
Yes,
use
this is,
nutrients in
yes,
yoga and mental
herb,
health care.
yes, how to use herbs in the mental, care. But I want to ask you a question related and not so related to that book, which is, great book because, it's so often we were asked to prescribe some medication, magic pill, and then another pill on top of another pill, and it's become chaotic. But my question to you, we in New Jersey, in New York, but in New Jersey with a lot of woods, and every year somebody new in my practice get diagnosed with Lyme disease. I know you had amazing personal experience with the treatment of that disease. If you can share that story with us, I think it can be very helpful and give us some,
Absolutely.
guidance.
Yes, I live in the Hudson Valley, and the ticks are everywhere, and the deer are everywhere. It's common in the night. If I look in my backyard, there are 10 deer eating there. Okay.
Of
Uh,
course.
so my wife got very severe Lyme disease at a time when doctors, in fact, there are still doctors don't believe there's anything like chronic Lyme disease. But I've seen, we both my wife and I have seen so many patients with chronic Lyme disease. And she got to the point where her brain wasn't working. And she was told by very good neurologists who saw her, you're going to have to stop practicing as a doctor. You're going to have to retire. You're going to have to go in a nursing home.
Wow.
And no one could offer anything. And you see, she's a doctor and she trained at Harvard Medical School, and her father was a doctor and her brother's a doctor. And I said, well, are you ready to try some natural things? Which she
Mm-hmm.
loved me, but at that time she had not been ready to try natural things. And I said, I'm going to give you an herb called rhodiola rosea, which will help your immune system that the Lyme has disturbed in your body. And it really makes everybody's brain work better. A few people, they get too much energy and they don't like it and they can't take it, but most people love it. And I learned about it through a man who had worked in the Soviet space program. He was from the Republic of Georgia, and he moved to America, and by chance we became great friends. And it saved him because of PTSD from fighting in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
I also use it for other things like PTSD.
Yes. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
And but in 2 weeks, my wife's brain started working again.
Wow, that's amazing story, and I'm sure that information is going to be useful for a lot of people. Now, I want to ask you the practical question. A lot of patients um, want to know what can be simple technique, what can be learned on the spot. It's practical advice. What in case of racing thoughts?
Right.
Because a lot of people, they cannot fall asleep. Like, I want to help people who have a trouble falling asleep, and if they have interrupted sleep and they wake up due to sleep apnea, apneic event, they have a trouble falling asleep again. And a lot of them, they don't talk about apnea event, they don't remember apnea event, but what they remember racing thoughts, they remember what they cannot focus on getting relaxed. And what technique would you recommend?
Right.
If
you're feeling really scared or angry, I want people to do 4 in, 4 hold, 6 out, 2 hold breathing.
Mm-hmm.
But for most of us, what works really well, which you can do anytime, anywhere, and it takes so little effort, is coherent breathing. So let's do that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So just sit quietly with your spine straight and closing your eyes, bring your attention inward. Feel the breath moving in your nose and throat. Now follow my breath pacing. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, no effort, very relaxed. Your belly gets bigger. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breath in, your belly gets bigger. Breath out, your belly gets smaller. Breath in, 2, 3, 4. Breath out, Keep your attention feeling the breath moving in your nose and throat. Breath in, 2, 3, 4. Breath out, 2, 3, 4.
This is
Breath
so
in.
beautiful.
And it's for everybody. So often I have soldiers, they say, well, I don't need that kind of breathing. I'm good. I'm like, do you want to shoot better than you shoot now? Do you want to be more aware on the battlefield? Because soldiers tell me after they learn this, when I meet with them several years later, they go, this keeps us alive on the battlefield more than other people. Or athletes say, I know how to breathe. I'm like, I have this amazing, pulmonary measurements. And I'm like, okay, a guy I took who was amazing.
Mhm.
There's this club in the Adirondacks where I think they have to climb like 40 peaks in the Adirondack, and they keep
Wow.
their record times, and they have to do it in every season, including ice snow season. And this guy showed, once he learned the breathing from me, he beat all his records by a
Oh my
lot.
God.
And he's already really top. And so if you want to climb Everest without Mount Everest without oxygen, you do this breathing, and yeah, you will be able to do it. Now, most of us don't need to do that or care about
Mhm.
it. My feeling is people want to be happier and healthier.
Yes.
And research from a group in Norway shows the final pathway to disease is imbalance of the autonomic system. And
Yes.
breathing is the simplest thing that fixes that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. We learn so much, and you give us, and our listeners, appreciate that helpful information what you provide, and we're looking forward to learn more. And you can sign up for Dr. Richard Brown courses. It's online, as well as read the books we just saw on the screen, or just to schedule consultation with Dr. Brown and learn healing breathing technique. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.